A very warm welcome to the Daily Grind here on Latte Firm. Sunday, the 5th of October. Arsenal are top of the league, and Bukayo Saka has reached a very big milestone in his Arsenal career. A legend in the making. Martin Zubimendi doing bits as well, coming off the bench at home against West Ham yesterday. And Victor Gyökeres, still lots of noise around his goal return, but I'm joined by my good friend and fantastic journalist, Roche, to talk about what might be wrong with him, or are we bothered? Welcome to the show. Welcome to all of our new viewers, Patreon members, channel members. Hope you've had a fantastic weekend and a good evening to Art as well. Art, how are you, buddy?
I'm all good, thanks. All good. Better after the events of yesterday. Actually, no, mostly it was just yesterday. Today's games didn't really mean too much for Arsenal. So, yeah, all good, thanks.
Good. Welcome to the show, my man. I know you've written a piece today on Martin Zubimendi. I will link that in the video description. Do check it out, people. We'll cover a little bit of it today. But we go into another international break, and we are top of the league. What's the general sort of vibe in your mind at the moment about all things Arsenal?
Yeah, so if we rewind a couple of weeks, so when the Port Vale game came around, I had to do their Q&A on Arsenal for their match day program, and they asked me to kind of sum up how Arsenal season was going at that point. And I was trying to think of a word, and the word that I fell on was steady. That was before, obviously, Arsenal went top of the league, way before. But I just thought at that point they were still kind of within touching distance of Liverpool, and there weren't fireworks yet at all, but they were still finding ways to get results. So yeah, I think at that point I would say steady. I'd still probably use that word now, but I'm quite encouraged by what we've seen in the last 3 games in all competitions, but 2 Premier League games, it being Newcastle and West Ham in particular. And I'm hoping those performances and results can be a precursor to what we see kind of going into Halloween, Thanksgiving for the US people, and Christmas as well, and any other holidays I've missed within that.
Well, hopefully it won't be a nightmare on Halloween for Arsenal this year. But yeah, look, to your point, Art, couple of tricky fixtures on paper. West Ham United at home, of course. We've been defeated last year and the year before. We've only lost 4 games in our last sort of 42, 44 at home in the Premier League, and 2 of them have come to the hands of the Hammers. And St James's Park just seems to be that sort of place where we've struggled in recent years. It's got a bit of needle, bit of spice in the fixture, but we've gone there and we've won, and it's been a really interesting day. I think also for our interesting sort of 9 days for our title rivals. Liverpool losing 3 games on the bounce, last gasp winners. Great to see, and long may it continue. We're going to talk about Bukayo Saka tonight. We're going to talk about Martin Zubimendi. We'll talk about Victor Gyökeres, and of course the title race. I know it's very early days, but sort of 7 games in, bit of a quarterly sort of term assessment. But your thoughts on the game yesterday, just overall overarching thoughts on the 2-0 win over West Ham?
Yeah, I don't think it's a game that'll be remembered like that much, if I'm being totally honest. But if we're talking about how things panned out, I was really excited by that lineup, the midfield in particular, seeing Odegaard and Eze starting together with Declan Rice just behind them. To be fair, I actually thought it worked quite well for the most part when Odegaard was on the pitch. I think you saw he was still able to create from that kind of right half space zone, the shot Timber had, but also the kind of the square ball that Saka played came from an Odegaard pass as well. But then there were other moments where he was given that freedom to roam, create from the kind of left channel as well for Gyökeres. And within that, I just think there was a lot of interesting things happening, like Declan Rice at that point was obviously much deeper, could have had an assist if Bukayo Saka timed his run a little bit better, or was just a little bit more aware of the line. But also there were moments where I think I forgot to mention this when I wrote the piece actually, but there was times where maybe West Ham would try and get the ball somewhere, like just try and get rid. but his long leg would just like, outstretch and stop it and keep Arsenal kind of in control, foot on the gas. So I was really encouraged by that, but to be forced into a change and make that I guess change of rhythm seem so seamless. I think Zubimendi was just exceptional, and the passes for the goals were great. So yeah, I think it's not a game that I think we'll look back on in like 6 months and be like, oh yeah, do you remember what happened in that game? But I think it's an interesting one for just planting seeds and ideas for what can potentially happen further down the road.
I think, Art, there are some games in the course of a season where you just have to play them, you just have to win them, and you just have to go about your business as best you can. And I'm happy that there are no highlights, no refereeing decisions, nothing extraordinary that we have to talk about. Obviously, the skip injured for the 3rd time in 3 starts. That's really bad news. There is a slide on Martin Odegaard. Want to get your thoughts on that? But like, I wouldn't mind that. It was a fairly vanilla, pedestrian, however you want to describe it, performance. You need some of those. We didn't really get out of first or even second gear. And it was just a very comfortable day. And, the stats, we were quite dominant, 20 plus shots on goal, lots of XG created. Like, mate, no complaints from me. Another 31 of those, and I'll be very, very happy. If you want to catch the thoughts on the match reaction, there is, of course, the match reaction video. Very, very popular. Thank you for everybody tuning in. That's on the channel feed. Do check it out. Keep the chat active as well. Hundreds of you have tuned in already to tonight's show live on YouTube. Do subscribe if you're enjoying the content that you're watching for the first time. The place to start is, of course, the Starboy, a legend in the making, a centurion of goal involvements. This courtesy of his penalty at the weekend, which I will come to you in just a second when we talk about Victor Gyökeres. But Bukayo Saka, 24 years old and 29 days, is now involved in 100 Premier League goals and assists in 200 Premier League games. This question is going to sound really dumb, Art, but I'm going to ask anyway. Just how good is Bukayo Saka? What sort of impact are you seeing him have on Arsenal Football Club?
First point, he's a very good footballer. I don't think if people didn't know already. I think when you look at the way Arsenal have, I guess, improved in the last few years, part of that is down to how serious they take games. I think when you look back to the Arsenal team that he kind of was integrated into, that team would kind of allow games to drift, and it was almost like, okay, maybe if Arsenal got a win, it was cool, but it wasn't kind of do or die. I think with him, he's probably one of the players who really kind of takes a game to a team, and you see that whenever he starts. So yeah, I think what also is very pleasing with Saka is his records are always quite like symmetrical. So with this is the 100 goal contributions in 200 games, but there have been seasons before where he's had like a very similar number of goals and assists. So that's always been quite nice that he's been able to produce both, I guess, finishing actions, but also creating actions at a very high volume. And yeah, I think yesterday, I just wish he would have been onside, because I would have preferred if that 100th goal contribution would have been that kind of nice left-footed shot into the far corner. But I guess we'll take a penalty.
Yeah, listen, we take it and we move, and it's just a fantastic milestone for the boy. And I've just realised a typo on the slide, which is doing my absolute head in. So I want to move away from that, right? Let's just get away from that and pretend nothing ever happened, right? Just click and go back in time. As a lot of people have said, Bukayo Saka, of course, started off or did play a short stint at left back, so the numbers could have been even higher. And the image that I've just moved away from, he's the 7th youngest to do that in the Premier League, which is phenomenal. And he's notching up the numbers. And if you think about it from an Arsenal perspective, that courtesy of Sky Sports, you can see there that he's the 8th in the sort of rankings there in terms of goals and assists of all time at Arsenal Football Club. Thierry Henry obviously top, 249 goals and assists that he got, the great legend. 181 for Dennis Bergkamp, 135 for Robin van Persie, and the list goes on. But as you can see, Saka's just a handful away from breaking into that top five. Robert Pires, Cesc Fabregas, Theo Walcott, and he's only 24 years of age. So I guess my question to you, as Raphael says, Saka is going to take us to the promised land. We're talking about a legend in the making, but potentially an Arsenal all-timer and a future Arsenal great. I mean, is that being too generous?
No, I think that's completely justified, and it has been for a while. When you look at, I guess, his journey, it's always been, I feel like the start of the season is always quite funny because people forget how young he is. So the 22-23 season, I think he would have been 2021 at the start of that year. And it's just ridiculous to
That's actually absurd.
like, so when you put that into perspective, and I guess the stages that he's been on, not just for Arsenal but for England too, and he's performed. If people think back to the Euros last year, England were 1-0 down against Switzerland. Who stepped up? Him. I think there's so many moments where you've seen he's grown, not just as a player but as a person, in terms of his maturity, and you see that now. Very often he'll be the one with the armband when Martin Odegaard isn't on the pitch, as was the case when Odegaard went off yesterday. And I think he's someone that really thrives off that responsibility. So, yeah, I think when you're looking at, I guess, talking about the future, I think you can definitely see him being someone that's in those conversations with the greats. It's just, I think it'll be important to enjoy it while we're in that moment, because you don't want to be stressed all the time, like whenever he goes down and everyone's like, oh my God, I hope it's not too bad.
But just on that, Art, it's because we've fallen in love with the boy.
Yeah.
Like he came through, he's one of our own, Hale End and all that sort of stuff. He's such a humble character on and off the pitch, always plays football with a smile. Off the pitch and when he does his interviews, very wholesome in terms of the content. You can tell that there's a purity about him. He just wants to play football and wants to play football for Arsenal, and he works so hard on the pitch. And you know, I've joked about him sort of being, my Arsenal son. That I'm old enough to be his dad. Quite a few of us are because he's so young. But like, he just makes me so proud every time I see him in an Arsenal shirt, every time I see him represent the club, every time I see him doing Arsenal media. He's just the most wonderful, it seems, human being, and he deserves all the praise. And of course, the injury last year, it cost us so massively. That's how important he is to us already. It looks like he's going to pen a new contract. It looks like he's going to spend the best years of his life at Arsenal. Like, I don't know what his ceiling is, but like many people have said in the chat, the guy is probably going to end up in the top 3 within the next couple of years. And then how high he goes, could he get close to Thierry Henry in terms of goals and assists? I mean, wow. Yeah. Like Shourov says, the Mr. Arsenal of my generation, and the trophies are coming.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun ride, hopefully. What was really frustrating about the injury last season was it actually came on his 250th appearance for Arsenal, all competitions. That was, and I'd like prepped this massive piece, and I was like, okay, maybe that was not the time. So I saved it for when he came back against Fulham, and thankfully he scored that day, or that evening, I should say. But when you look at the numbers, I think last season he was only 1 assist away from breaking his personal record. And you could see, especially, I think, this time last year, he was just getting assist after assist after assist. When he gets into that rhythm of just affecting games, it's really, really hard to stop. And even yesterday, there were moments where I can't remember who was playing left back for West Ham. Apologies, but he just couldn't live with him. When he was like, when he gets the ball and he's driving infield and he has someone on his hip, basically, he's still so strong to hold that off when he's getting fouled most of the time. I think what will be really encouraging maybe in the next, I guess, block of games is if Arteta still decides to be very adventurous with his midfields, how that opens things up in different ways. I think obviously everyone will talk about, okay, maybe more attackers or more creative players can mean that maybe opposition defenders have more players to mark. But then I also think there should be more moments like that Rice ball over the top, because they've been practicing that since pre-season. And I'd like to see if that can really kind of come to something proper in a game.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think it was Juve playing at left back for West Ham yesterday. But listen, he gets the best out of most of his fullbacks. I've just, while you were talking, brought up, courtesy of Opta Analyst, his goals and assist map in the Premier League. His 100 goal contributions, as I've put in the thumb, 55 goals and 45 assists, equaling 100 involvements in 200 Premier League games. You can see on screen there the red dots are the goals and the blues are the assists. And now a number of the assists coming from corners and a number of the goals, as you can see, 12 coming from the spot. But there's no denying that once he gets the ball, once he gets a bit between his teeth, and once he's in that sort of corner of the penalty area and gets into that final third, he is devastating. And I remember, many podcasts have talked about it, but I've been talking about it ever since he sort of broke into the team. He is the nice guy. He loves to get the ball. He's obviously very, very good at football, but he needs to develop that killer edge, that devastation. Like that sort of, when Thierry Henry used to just go through one-on-one with the keeper, you just knew. You had that feeling, inevitability. And when Saka gets the ball and he's just in and around the penalty area and you're going to get the ball to Bukayo Saka, whether it's a 1-2 give and go, secondary run, whether it's just him running at a defender and taking a pop at a shot, there is an air of inevitability about Bukayo Saka netting. And that is what makes him so unbelievably good.
Yeah, I think particularly in the Champions League, everyone, I think, has seen the numbers this week after the Olympiacos game. I think, I can't remember them off the top of my head. It was either 17 or 19 goal involvements in the Champions League since Arsenal returned only 2-3 seasons ago. And it seems like whenever there is a big occasion, he steps up. Obviously, he missed that penalty against Real Madrid, but came up with a goal later in the game. And you see again, season before that, it was Bayern Munich. He was the one that opened the scoring. An unbelievable night, even though it ended as a draw. I think that game did. And then, of course, the second leg went away from Arsenal. But I think particularly on those Champions League nights, you see he's ready to show out, basically. And what was really encouraging about the Olympiacos goal was, just the pure power he put through the ball, but B, the fact it came from the left-hand side as well. I don't know if I've mentioned it here on with you, but like I've been wanting Arteta to switch the wingers for ages. Just because it allows different angles, different possibilities, and I really do hope he does it a bit more often going forward, because you see also when we talk about, I guess, his early kind of days in the first team as a left back, even though he was a winger in the academy, a lot of his kind of early assists were crosses from that left-hand side, because he's strong on that left foot and he just knows where to put the ball. I think if you've got him shooting from those areas as well, I think you'll just get goals.
He is him. That is all I have to say. And listen, I've just tweeted about Antoine Semenyo. I am fully on board that train. And if he were to join, you're going to see a lot more sort of rotation across the flanks. Can't wait for it. Let's not start any transfer speculation. I fear it's too late. Listen, that's Bukayo Saka. What a milestone. Chat, let me know, how high do you think this guy can go? Will he be our all-time goals and assists contributor at the club? Let's talk about Martin Zubimendi, because, of course, he didn't start against West Ham yesterday. The skipper went off. We'll talk about Ødegaard. And then Mikel Arteta, I thought, was going to just bring on Ethan Nwaneri just to kind of go like for like-ish. But in the end, brought on Zubimendi, and what a decision that was, because he came on, had an incredible impact on the game and just controlled it, man. I mean, what a player he is. You've written a piece about him. I'll post that in the description of the video. What was your take? What was your impact? What was your take on the impact that he made? Sorry.
Yeah, so similar to you, in real time, I just thought, okay, Erdegaard's going off again, Ethan will come on again. um, and yeah, it wasn't an expected change just because of what Arteta's done against Leeds and Nottingham Forest. So I asked him about it afterwards, and he said basically he felt that West Ham were matching Arsenal's midfield quite well, and weren't actually trying to play out themselves. They were going more direct, so he wanted a bit more control. Um, and if you're looking for control, then Zubimendi's the guy to bring on. And you could see the switch instantly. So with Erdegaard on the pitch, I, in the piece, I just said it was fluid because you couldn't really you couldn't pin down the way that midfield three was set up. It was three midfielders playing in midfield. Erdegaard was deep at times. He was high at others. Eze was obviously mostly playing as a 10, but again was floating. But there was a real kind of fluidity to it, and you saw it especially at goal kicks. But with Zubimendi, it was very clear what the structure was. It was back to a 4-2-3-1, if you want to call it that, and that's what kind of leads to the first goal, because he's in that kind of that pocket where the deep playmaker is going to be, and Eze makes that run in behind. So I think that's where you saw, I guess, the spark for the first time. But the structure was in place as soon as Zubimendi came onto the pitch. Sorry, and it led to that goal. Mentioned in the piece as well that Zubimendi made more line breaking passes than anyone on the pitch, despite coming on half an hour into the game. And obviously the first one is that Eze one, but also another one led to the penalty won by Urian Timber in the second half. So two really, really standout moments in a way that I guess Mikel Arteta showed, okay, in real time, maybe his initial plan wasn't working as he wanted, or he could see maybe a way to adapt it slightly, and that worked. So yeah, in hindsight, everyone can say, oh, what a great decision, but I think credit should go to him for making it in real time.
Indeed, and listen, for that first half hour, 4-3-3 saying evening firm, late joining tonight. The Zubimendi pass map is insane. And listen, we've talked about him, left foot, right foot, his ability to pass short, low, high, long. He can do all of that stuff. The thing that really appeals to me is his speed of thought, Art. You know, I think there's like an animated sort of graphic going around. I think Match of the Day used it, 1.7
Yeah.
seconds, where he had to make that decision to play the ball through to Eze for that first goal where he shot and then keeper parried to Rice. I think the speed of thought, the game, people used to talk about Dennis Bergkamp, the game, he was always one step ahead of everything else on the pitch. And, you know, likewise, that was attributed to the likes of Cesc Fabregas and Mesut Ozil. And this guy has got it. I'm not saying he's a similar player in terms of creative element, but it just feels like he plays the game in slow motion. Like he knows exactly where to go, where to ping it. And what's also impressive, it's not just his passing game. If we have a look at his touch map, this is again courtesy of Optra Analyst. Look where he's picking up the ball at, like deep, high, left, right, central zones. He covers grass, but he doesn't feel like when you watch him, you don't think of him as like this is a guy who's just going to eat up the pitch and gallop and be that dynamic player. But he's everywhere.
Yeah, I mentioned, I think on here in preseason we did something on him, and I mentioned how aside from all the in possession stuff, I was actually really impressed by how kind of front footed he was when defending, and I think you've seen that in kind of glimpses so far in the Premier League this season. The Leeds game, Saka's goal comes from him making the interception, and then again you mentioned thinking quickly. He had the vision and the foresight to see what pass was on, and that led to the goal coming within 5-10 seconds of him making that interception. Then I think also it's weird, like sometimes he'll be in those deep areas, and then as you say, you see at times he'll push on a bit more. I think what's really helpful for that is there is no real kind of set shape to the midfield. They're allowed to roam now, and that's a really really big indicator of, I guess, how fluid the football can be. And with Declan Rice, he was used in two different ways during the game. Obviously, a bit deeper in the first half an hour, but once Zubimendi was on, he could push on a bit more. So I think the other thing that comes with Zubimendi is he just allows other players to maybe show their other strengths rather than what you just kind of pigeonhole them into. Sorry. So yeah, really, really encouraging to see, and hopefully he continues in that vein.
Mate, you're telling me. I mean, listen, Indy Barge, welcome to the show, says the silent midfield general. He is the quiet assassin, just goes about his business. Like, you don't even realize that he's there, but he's pulling all the strings. Absolutely love it. And 433, oh, mate, I'm so glad you said
I
this.
was going to mention that.
Go on, go on.
No, because I'm a long sleeve guy. So
same.
like,
I love it.
Obviously, again, on here in preseason, I mentioned the Eze shirt that I was waiting to get. Finally got it, and that's in long sleeve. So, yeah, I love Adidas bringing back the long sleeves. Obviously, not just Arsenal, but the Liverpool kits look really good as well.
They do, to be fair.
So, yeah, big thumbs
up.
Did
you see David Raya's purple goalkeeping kit this weekend? I thought that looked absolutely
he didn't even have to make a save, so I didn't notice.
True. But I think the club, they haven't released that yet, but they are going to release that. Someone got in touch and let us know. Brad, welcome to the show. He says, finally caught a stream live. Love the in-depth analysis. Come on, you Gunners. It is the guests who make the show, Brad, but I really appreciate you joining. Thanks so much for tuning in. And Jason says they look so good, and I'm so happy that we're wearing that instead of the undershirt.
I've noticed some players haven't gone with the long sleeve. Some players are still using the undershirt, and I don't know why. I might see if I can look into that.
Well, that used to be a tradition, didn't we? That the captain would pick whatever shirt we wore, and we'd have to all either wear short or long. But there is a mix this season. Very, very interesting. Yeah, Jason, I appreciate the typo. Let's move on to something that's not been as positive, and that is, of course, the focus on Victor Gyökeres. And I've brought up his pass map from the West Ham game yesterday, again, courtesy of our partners, Opta Analyst. You can see there, 11 total passes in the game, 5 successful. So I want to talk about the penalty thing in just a second. But what have you made of Victor Gyökeres' start at Arsenal? Up?
Mixed. I think when you look at how he's played, he's just not had a lot of, I guess, actions from other players that kind of bring him into the game. And that's not, I think, groundbreaking to say. A lot of people have noticed that. Yesterday was a bit frustrating because it seemed like he was kind of getting into those areas that he needed to be in, but the timing was just off. Like, he was just a second off with that square ball that I mentioned from Saka in the first half, and then the Rice squared ball in the second half where he was just stretching and couldn't reach it. And yeah, I'm not sure what to put that down to, but then on the other hand, I came away from the Newcastle game thinking he played quite well, because there he combined quite well with Bukayo Saka, was really clean with his touches, and he gave Arsenal a platform that they needed. Whereas I guess in those home games, you're not really going to look for him to create a platform because you're going to have most of the ball anyway. So it's then about, okay, how and when are you hitting this guy? And to be fair, I think the service yesterday was probably fine from Saka and Rice in those moments. It was more him maybe trying too hard to, I don't know, like kind of be in contact with a defender, it felt like, because it seemed like he was always under a challenge when the ball was coming in. And I think you just need to make it easier for yourself. But this is me talking as someone who's not a striker, who's played professionally. So it's very easy for me to say that, but that's just what my eyes kind of saw.
Well, talking about your eyes, I mean, for the last couple of shows that I've done on this channel, I've talked about the noise that there is out there about Victor Gyökeres and how I think it might sort of crank up a little bit because Benjamin Sesko scored a couple of goals. There's already graphics or images going around of, he's played fewer minutes and he scored just as many open play goals, blah, blah, blah. But we are top. and he hasn't started motoring yet in terms of goals. But if you use your eyes, he's doing so much work for us out of possession. He does so much work for us when he's trying to sort of grapple with defenders and move them away and provide space for our attackers. In fact, there's a still going around, there's a chance where Gyökeres has 4 defenders around him and Ez is just completely unmarked in the box. And I think that's the sort of impact that he's going to have. I think the goals will come. I'm not nervous about it at all. I feel that he is a very, very good player. And once familiarity comes, I mean, we've been crippled by injury since the start of the season, right? I mean, Madueke, he's played with him maybe 2 or 3 times. Now played with Saka 2 or 3 times. He's had Rice going forward. He's had Eza obviously join. He's got Martinelli and Trossard sort of interchanging every week. Like that fluidity, that familiarity, the connectiveness, it just takes a bit of time to come. Would you agree with that, or would you disagree?
Yeah, a little bit. I also think there have been moments where, I guess, say the Port Vale game that I mentioned earlier, Max Dowman came on and immediately played that ball over the top for him. So that wasn't a moment where you needed to wait for that kind of connection. The ball was just played and he's in. So I think there are moments where, again, his goal against Leeds came from a similar situation with Calafiori just putting the ball in behind. I think there will be times where you just need to play that ball if you feel it in the moment. And that's what makes, I guess, Ødegaard's injury a bit more frustrating, because it seemed like he was kind of starting to get a feel for what Gyökeres needed. Both with the ball against Olympiacos. Actually, I think he played 2 really, really nice passes into him against Olympiacos. And it seemed like when we talk about time, it seemed like they were getting that time. And frustratingly now, I guess they're not going to be able to work on that partnership for a good few weeks now. So it's going to have to come from other players. I think with Eze as a 10, there was a nice moment against Newcastle where Eze's on the ball and he kind of just slips it into the box, kind of outside of his foot. And it led to, I think, a shot that got blocked like instantly on contact. And then Gyökeres slipped as he tried to take the second shot. But that's going to be a slightly different dynamic to the way Ødegaard would have found him. So I think there are, maybe with those more central guys, you're going to need a bit more time. But then there are other players on that pitch where when you're in a moment where you can just put that ball around the corner, you just need to do it because he's gonna make that run. So yeah, part of it will be developing relationships. Other parts of it will be, okay, if the ball's on, just play it.
Just final thing on Victor. Are you surprised that he didn't get the pen, or is Bukayo Saka very much the established penalty taker for you for the rest of the season?
So in my head, and people can like say whether they disagree, but I was wondering whether that stat that we spoke about at length at the start was kind of in the thinking. I wondered whether like getting to 100 goal contributions in the 200 games would have been a really like big thing that Saka would have wanted. But I could be wrong, and it could just be a fact that Bukayo Saka's the Arsenal guy, so he's the penalty taker. But yeah, that's just where my head went in real time. But other people I know felt a bit differently about that.
Well, listen, I agree with you. I think Bukayo Saka took it because of the moment and the occasion. 200th game for Arsenal, 100 contributions in those 200 Premier League games. I think for me, Victor Gyökeres should take the pens. There's a very naughty video doing the rounds where it gives the impression that Victor Gyökeres didn't celebrate with Saka, but if you look closely, Saka's wearing the Champions League badge just in the celebration. So you're not going to fool everyone, Arsenal fans. Being very, very naughty. Head of Arsenal is in the house, says shout out to Art de Roche, class work, and he loves the Latte firm. Really appreciate that, Hand of Arsenal. You've been such a great supporter of the channel all throughout the summer. I hope you are well, my friend. Let's move on to the last couple of things before we wrap up. Terrible fortune for the skipper. Now appears that he has an MCL sprain, likely to miss a few weeks. We've now obviously got the blessing of an international break, so he won't go with Norway. He will not miss, obviously, Premier League games in that time, but it's devastating, isn't it, Art?
Yeah, it's just, as I mentioned before, really frustrating because of the timing. The reason why the Newcastle game was so encouraging, that I mentioned earlier, was because of his impact in it. And I mentioned in that piece that went out today, obviously Zubimendi was the player that came on yesterday and kind of provided that spark. And it was the reverse last week. It was Erdegaard who came on and really provided the spark. And it just seemed like he was coming back into a really nice rhythm. That Olympiacos game, I thought, even though I don't know, he was unlucky with that chance that was saved, or the double chance, I should say, that was saved. But throughout the game, he was outstanding with not just the passing, but the kind of crispness of it all. Like, it all seemed like it had a really nice. Well, actually, I won't clap my hands too much, but
But it felt like he had the spring in his step. He felt like
yeah,
Odegaard of old, like just this
exactly.
young whippersnapper, like, just popping it around the pitch,
Yeah.
like with slickness and confidence. And he was just getting into the flow. And I was like,
That's it.
19
Yeah.
minutes at Newcastle, tremendous. Olympiacos really run the show. And like, we were seeing passes like those sort of, through balls in between two or three players that you just thought, my God, he's ready to cook. And then, of course, the injury. What have you heard in terms of recovery time? Is it, sort of 6 weeks, 8 weeks? Have you heard anything
I
on the
haven't
rounds? Okay.
checked. So today I've tried not to be work zone.
Oh, well, thank you for joining us, man. I appreciate it.
But I think the longest usually for MCLs is about 8 weeks, 4 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when we talk about, I guess, him yesterday as well, I think it should be mentioned that with those line breaking passes, so in the final third, he was still joint first, despite playing half an hour. That's the level kind of he was operating at yesterday as well.
Wow.
When he came off. So it's just really, really unfortunate timing, because it seems like that midfield was kind of ready to rock. And Mikel Arteta as well afterwards said that he will, like, basically I said, would you like to play that midfield again? And he said, yeah, because they need to get more chemistry. They just didn't have enough time to really get moving together. That's me paraphrasing.
Do you know what? Every now and again, I forget that you actually talk to Mikel, and I love your questions. And I've said that to you before. I've said it directly and indirectly, but keep that up. I want to bring the show to a close up by just talking about the title race, and it is, of course, Happy Invincibles weekend. Crystal Palace, of course, losing to Everton thanks to a Jack Grealish injury time winner today. That means no team can replicate this. Certainly this season, I don't think it's going to be replicated in my lifetime, but there we are. What would you make of, and again, the league table courtesy of Optra Analyst on the right-hand side, Arsenal sit handsomely on the top of the table. What would you make of, I guess, the start of the season? What's your sort of 7 games in report? Things you like, things you don't like?
Yeah, so half-term report. Things I like, I think I've spoken about Zubimendi. I've liked Eze, even though he should have scored that chance yesterday. What else have I liked? I've liked that Arteta's been more adventurous in not just his selections, but also how he's using players a bit differently. And there's loads of examples, not just Erdegaard that we've touched on, but I might see if I can write a piece on that during the international break. So yeah, those are a few of the main things that I've liked. Also, I think David Raya deserves a mention, because the saves he's made, I know he didn't have to make one against West Ham, but the saves he's made have all been at big moments in games. So whether it's 0-0 or like a 1-0 scoreline at the time, when Arsenal then go on to win by 2, he's been top again. So those have been my main, I guess, plus points for this half term. Areas for improvement. Obviously, Gyökeres is a big one. I think also. Let me try and think, because to be fair, a lot of things are working quite well at the moment. Also need to mention the impact of substitutes.
Oh yes.
Can't forget that. So yeah, I'd say I've got a lot more plus points than kind of areas for improvement. The main one is, Gyökeres. And yeah, I'm not sure what else off the top of my
I mean,
head.
mate, we don't have to think about it. Like, we're top of the league. We've conceded 3 goals in 9, 10 games this season. Arteta has cobbled together a very big squad, and he's using them well, and he's rotating. And 6 changes after St James's Park against Olympiacos, and further changes again this weekend. That's a good sign. Defensively, Christian Mosquera has been an outstanding player. David Raya, like you say, looking very calm and composed. Midfield-wise, love what I see. Going to see lots more of Eza. Loved what I was seeing from Noni Madueke, and absolutely gutted for the boy. Up front, I think Victor Gyökeres, that connectivity, he is leading the line. I think Arsenal are so used to not playing with a proper out-and-out centre forward that it's kind of just going to take a bit of time to gel. And there's probably not much to think about that's kind of broken. So let's enjoy it. As Mike Jones says in the chat here, I like being top of the league. It's a great place to be, and hopefully it'll continue. But I can't not end the show without asking. Look, 7 games in, top of the table. Liverpool showing signs of, let's say... not weakness, but sort of faltering. But there's a long way to go. And we can't ignore Pep Guardiola and Manchester City. They are on fire this year. Erling Haaland seems to have the bit between his teeth. But is it coming home, Art? Is this the season? I ask you this every time, and I need to get an answer from you every time.
I'm going to plead the fifth on that one.
Fair dues. Mike says, areas for improvement, injury prevention, 100%. Yeah, look, soft tissue injuries, we don't want to see that. But I think, look, listen, I think we both sleep at night knowing that we go into the international break. We're in a really good place at the moment. And we have a squad that's strong enough to go on all fronts. And listen, January's just around the corner. You never know if there's any sort of, pennies at the bottom of the bag that we can cobble together and maybe go down to the South Coast and get the guy that I've just talked about. That would be sensational. PAB says, greetings, Latte Firm. Just tuned in. Dave says, tap the like button and on the way out. And if you have tuned in tonight, and there are hundreds of you watching live, please do subscribe to the channel if you're watching for the first time. We'll be back on Tuesday with Red Action Gooners to talk about atmosphere at the Emirates. Lots of empty seats yesterday, ticketing, balloting, tourists, noise, crowd, that tifo from last year. Want to get Raymond on that, and why that sort of happened. So join us for that. We'll be back tomorrow with some sort of a show as well. If anybody wants to follow Art, he's available at Art de Roche. Are you looking forward to doing any special pieces over the international break? You kind of alluded to one just a few moments ago.
Yeah, I've got 2 ideas in my head. So one's about that kind of using players a bit differently. I also had one go out before the West Ham game on Friday, which was about Eze. So I spoke to a few of his old Hale End teammates who knew him back when he was at Arsenal as a kid, which, was a lot of fun to work on. And if people want to check that out, it's on my Twitter and stuff, so you can find it. You can find it there.
Good. Do check out Art's profile. Ohio Risland, welcome. Rislord, sorry, welcome to this. Semenyo at AFCON when we play Bournemouth. Well, that is a bonus, and hopefully Semenyo at Arsenal after January. But let's not get too carried away. I feel I've done that already 3 or 4 times. Art, fantastic to have you on board. Enjoy the international break. Look forward to having you back again. Chat, if you've enjoyed the show, please do drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. And what can I say? Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. Enjoy going into work tomorrow. We are top of the league. It's a great place to be. Until next time, bye-bye for now.